We're going to look at drawing hands and some simple ways to draw hands using your own hand, and show you a couple examples of some that I've been drawing, and then I'll show you how I did it. Some of these are finished, some of these are kind of works in progress. But they were all done using my own hand as the reference. And I'll show you the steps, and it's actually a pretty easy way to do it. Put your hand in any position, put it right on the paper, and then use it as the reference. So let me show you how to do it, and it's easier than you might think. So obviously the simplest way to draw a hand the same size as the hand would be to trace it, and you could put your hand in any position. You can make a fist, just anything, and then whatever position you decide to put the hand in, it's easiest if you keep at least a finger on the paper so you can keep your hand still. And obviously, the simplest way to do it is just to put your hand flat on the paper. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to show you that one. And so I'm going to leave a little bit of the wrist and spread the fingers out, and then all you do is make sure the pencil's straight up and down, or mostly straight up and down, and then you're going to follow the outline of your hand. Now when you do this, you have to keep your pencil straight up and down. If you don't, you'll end up making your fingers either too fat or too skinny. And what you're going to find as you do that is sometimes it's hard to keep it straight, and then sometimes the contours of your finger as you're outlining the finger change a little bit as the pencil pushes your skin in. And so this is just a starting point for your drawing, and then you may come back and make some changes. In fact, most likely you will want to make some changes. So don't draw too dark. You always want to draw light at first in any drawing until you're confident that you have things where you want them. Okay, so after you've drawn the outline, then look at where the shadows are, and you can literally just outline lightly the shadows and copy those too. For some of it, you might have to be a little tricky depending on which way the light's going. My light's coming from the right now, so that's making it a little harder because I'm right-handed, so I have to make sure my hand doesn't block the shadow, and so I'm having trouble keeping it straight, but more or less something like that. And then this little nail here. Over something like that. The other thing you could do, and it's probably a smarter way to do it, is just take a picture. Grab your cell phone camera and take a picture. And that way you don't have to worry about blocking the shadow. But I am using my cell phone to record this video, so I can't use my cell phone to take a picture. But that would be a smart way to do it. One that I would recommend. Oh, look, there's a little hair sticking up in the shadow. Okay, so I've outlined the hand and I've outlined the shadow. Now I'm going to remove the paper and move it over a little bit, and I actually have to move my hand too to show you. It's ideal if you can keep the hand where it was so the lighting stays the same. But now you just have to look at your hand and look at what you drew and see if it's more or less accurate. And sometimes you'll find that it's a little off, a little too skinny, a little too fat. My fingers, the way they're drawn there, appear to me a little bit bigger, a little bit fatter, but it seems to be proportionally bigger throughout. So I probably won't modify that a whole bunch. But then you just kind of start coming in and adding the details that you see on your fingers. So like, for example, we'll start over here with the nail. So I'm looking at it from the side. So I'm not going straight up and down, even though I drew it straight up and down. Um, there's a little bit of a difference between where the lines were in the straight up and down drawing and where I'm actually seeing the nails. But I can just modify it as I go. All right, so have the nails approximately placed. There's this ring over here that kind of moved as I was drawing it. So drawing it a little bigger than it actually is. So the fingers are also a little bigger. All right, so then I'm gonna come in and try to look at where the light's hitting the finger to show the form. And there's also a few places where you can kind of see the bone structure a little bit underneath the finger. Also a little more shadow being cast now that I moved the hand over. So when you draw, you are creating an illusion, of course, and you have what makes art interesting is the freedom that you have to kind of change the drawing and still make it look realistic. You kind of change what you see on the paper a little bit, and that's where your individual style comes out. And sometimes you do it on purpose, and sometimes it's an accident that you just roll with. But some of us have better perception and ability to draw accurately what we see than others. And of course, it's easier for you if that's the case. But what's fun in the art is, to me anyways, is the individual styles that come out. Of course, it's really impressive to see people's ability to accurately draw things too. But so then you just look for little areas. You're not going to draw every single wrinkle. You're not going to draw every single area of light and shadow, but you're going to try to find some, like this tendon here. And both of those tendons are kind of showing up, so I'm just lightly placing them. And the knuckles as well are kind of present, sort of. They're not really loudly present, but there's also like little just veined and things that you don't have to draw every single one, but a little bit of those things makes it look a little more realistic. So I'm like drawing around the vein just to give a little hint of that, but not too much. Don't want my hand to look super veiny, especially because this is a black and white drawing. So you don't want to overdo, because we're just kind of in the quick sketch mode right now. Just little hints of where the light and dark is. Not every little. Not every little detail. Just enough to make it kind of convincing. And again, when we drew this, or when I drew this, I outlined it straight up and down, but I'm looking at it from a slightly different angle, so I'm just modifying. But I have when you outline, you're just saving yourself a little time as far as putting in locations and placement of where things are proportionally and stuff. Of course, you don't have to outline it. You can just look at it. But I'm just trying to show you a quick and easy way to draw your own finger. And then you don't get so hung up on trying to accurately draw the shape of the finger. And you can spend more time working on learning how to do the little things that show the form, the little things that show the light, the little things that make it just look a little bit more realistic. Not necessarily exactly photorealistic, obviously, but just looks a little bit more like a hand, and it looks a little bit more like your hand. My pencil's a little dull. I probably should sharpen it, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to interrupt the drawing. This is a nice soft pencil, which is fun to work with, but they need to be sharpened a little more frequently if you want a nice sharp clean line. Couple more wrinkles. So I've got this little bridge here, which I don't actually see that right where I'm looking right now, but I kind of like how it looks, so I'm just gonna leave it for now. I may want to change it later. Wrist, I see this bump being much more pronounced right now from the angle that I'm at. So I want to put that in. So it's a combination of drawing what you see and drawing what you think looks good. And sometimes when you're start learning how to draw it, that's where your challenge is, because you're drawing something that you see and it doesn't look good to you, and so you change it, but then you draw it in a way that actually isn't accurate. You're trying to draw something that looks good, so I would say, when in doubt, draw what you see when you're beginning, and then you can kind of learn how to how to just do little tricks involving light and shading and stuff like that. All right, so I could probably do more, but I'm trying to keep it simple. And there's some hairs. I'll put a few, just little light hair. You don't want to draw it overly wrinkled. You don't want to draw it overly hairy. I mean, if you're trying for photorealism, that's a whole nother process. But just for quickly sketching your hand and trying to make it look realistic, but not photorealistic, but just real enough. It's gonna go, oh yeah, that kind of does look like a hand. That kind of does look like my hand. So you don't have to put every detail just exactly so in order to do that. So light's coming from this side, so even though I've kind of put a little bit of shading kind of there, and I'll probably put a little bit here, even though I don't actually see it, I'm trying to show the definition of the hand. And so even though there's not a whole lot there, I'm just kind of going to put some, and there are places where there's different colors and tones, and I'm just drawing that to kind of give a little bit of bone structure, and I'll just kind of lightly shade it like there is. Okay, then I'm gonna put in this cast shadow that I already mapped out. I didn't draw the one on this side. I don't know if there was one actually, but there is one now that I see, so I think I am gonna put it over there. This pencil does a pretty good job of dropping down the graphite pretty quickly when you put it on the side, because it's nice and soft. And let's see. I'm not going to put my hand on there because I'll smudge it a bunch. So I'll just put a little bit right here. Not too much. As it gets closer up here, even less. Tiny little bit. All right, so that's basically the process, and then the rest is, fine details and deciding whether you want to outline the fingers a little more. How dark do you want your shadows to be, your cast shadows and stuff like that. Or, do you want to put in some designs on the ring or whatever other details you might have? Like, this is kind of similar to the design, not exactly, but just little semi-accurate version of the ring. Okay, so I'll stop there.